SMU, Alabama. Who do you have for the final playoff spot?
You are Locked On College Football, smothered and covered, with your host, Barrett Sallee. Your one-stop shop for everything college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in, instant reaction to a fantastic championship weekend in our beloved sport. Are you not entertained? I mean, how much fun was that? We have a phenomenal performance by Arizona State to recap. We'll also talk about Georgia's big win, but everybody is talking about the ACC championship game. And I think more importantly, what happens with that final playoff spot. The show brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, if you win your first $5 bet, they'll give you $150 in bonus bets guaranteed as long as you win that bet. It's at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. SMU, Alabama. Who do you have? Who do you got? I'll tell you what I got. I got SMU. I don't think there's any doubt now that SMU should get that final playoff spot over Alabama. Clemson, obviously, a bid thief. Alabama was the last team in. So what do? I think SMU should have gotten in regardless, in my mind. Now, was there a little bit of doubt when Clemson got up big in the first half? Sure, of course there was. But getting off the mat, outplaying Clemson for the entire second half, putting themselves in position to go to overtime, and making one small mistake, allowing a big kick return, is way more than enough, in my mind, to earn a spot, an at-large spot, and thus knocking Alabama out. That's a better football team than Alabama on the field and from a resume perspective. It flat out is. You look at what Alabama's mistakes were, what their shortcomings were. First of all, they have 3 losses. 2 of them are inexcusable losses. They've lacked discipline all year. They have not found a groove. And you look at what SMU has done. They had essentially 4 quarters total all year that they didn't really control the game. They were pretty good at the end of the BYU game. They did not play well against Nevada in the opener. They cruised through the schedule and then had a quarter and a half bad football in the ACC championship game and then did not quit. If those committee members in Grapevine, Texas, don't reward just what SMU did during the final half of that game, then why even play the game? You can't punish, I think, any team for playing their way into a spot to lose and knock themselves out. You just can't do it. SMU was phenomenal all year in the ACC. Phenomenal. You don't run the table in any conference unless you are disciplined, well-coached, talented, and SMU's all 3. And then they go to Charlotte with all of the pressure and even more pressure when they get down early. No worries. That is a championship caliber team. They didn't win a championship on Saturday night, but you can't say that team is not worthy of or capable of winning an ACC title. Well, sure they are. They almost did. And so you can't take away the importance of a conference championship game. SMU's got a better resume because it has 2 good losses as opposed to 3 losses, 2 of which are horrible losses from Alabama. So keep SMU in the field. If you have any comments, please leave them in the chat. I will try to get to them as soon as possible. And for Clemson. Now, I've been off and on with Clemson all year long. I was down on them after the opener. Kind of looked like Cade Klubnik was reluctant to let it rip, just like he was last year. He seemed to get it right. He seemed to get right middle of the season. Then maybe he doesn't look good towards the end of the season in the South Carolina game. And then suddenly he comes back and he's fine. That, I think, is a byproduct of a wide receiving room that just had not come together. With Wesco now as a superstar and Antonio Williams there, they've got pieces. Now, the rushing attack needs to get healthy. The running back room needs to get healthy before the playoff. They have time to rest up. That is not just a team that can make the playoff. They can win a game, perhaps two, because they're coming together at the right time. Now, if I'm seeding the college football playoff, here's what I got. Here is what I got. Oregon, number 1. I have Georgia jumping up to number 2. Arizona State, I have jumping up to 3 because I do think they're going to be above Boise State in the rankings and thus get that one of those 4 automatic qualifiers with a bye. So I have Arizona State 3, jumping Boise State. Boise State still being ranked around 8th, 9th, or whatever, but claiming that number 4 spot. Notre Dame 5, Texas and Georgia, whatever. If Notre Dame and Texas want to switch, whatever. Ohio State 7, Penn State, valiant effort. They lost to Ohio State, so they get 1 spot behind Ohio State in the number 8 spot. They will host a home game against Tennessee. I got Clemson sliding in at number 10 because of how much they've progressed since game 1, and they have a signature win now. So give me Clemson at number 10, Indiana at 11. Then I have SMU sliding in at that number 12 spot. So there you have it. Oregon, Georgia, Arizona State, Boise State, Notre Dame, Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, Tennessee, Clemson, Indiana, and SMU. Why Arizona State over Boise State? Boise State, to me, is, I wouldn't say a one-man team because Maddox Madsen was really good on Friday night. But you've seen times that they have looked a little shaky. Wyoming is a perfect example. That's a common opponent. Arizona State took care of them. That's going to matter, especially now that we're talking about a conference champion in Arizona State. That will matter. Well, we think that will matter. Ward Manuel and those guys just sort of make up their rules as they go along. But in theory, based on their rules and their protocols, it should. So Arizona State, I think, jumps Boise State. Now, what I think is really fascinating about what we have moving forward is, where do you put Texas? Because the last, I don't know, half of the season, I have fallen out of love with Quinn Ewers. He was solid today, don't get me wrong. But I don't know what to make of him, because even when he has good games, which he did today, there seems to be like prolonged lulls where things just kind of fall apart for a little while. To me, I trust Riley Leonard over Quinn Ewers. I trust Notre Dame over Texas, because what do we call Notre Dame on this show? What do we always call Notre Dame? The best, most boring football team in college football. And that is a good thing, because they are consistent. Their floor is super high. Their ceiling, I think, has gotten pretty high too. But their floor is so high. They can run the football. Jeremiah Love is gaining steam as the season goes along. Whereas Texas, you're pretty darn good, but you're not Notre Dame. And yes, I think there are flaws. I don't know what the ceiling is for Texas. They didn't run the football effectively at all against Georgia. Honestly, both those teams, that was a pretty ugly football game. We'll talk a little bit more about what to expect with Georgia in a little bit. So I have Texas behind Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State, Tennessee. Honestly, this is going to be a very interesting debate in the room between Penn State and Tennessee. Because Tennessee, they still have a good win. It's not over a playoff team in my mind, but clearly one that the committee respects in Alabama. Penn State's resume doesn't really include that. They don't have that data point. Now, there is a data point for the committee to look at. I know data points in the committee are kind of all over the place right now. And that matters. That debate actually matters. In terms of the intrigue tomorrow, yes, the SMU-Alabama debate is going to lead everything off. There's no doubt about that. But that 8-9 matchup, where is that game going to be played? Because to me, I think it will be either Ohio State or Penn State playing Tennessee. I think that's going to be where what that argument actually is. Can you make a case for the boys on Rocky Top to get a home game? Can make a pretty decent one. Not enough to overtake Penn State. You can't really punish because they played their tails off against Oregon. So I think that's the way it's going to go. And if it's Ohio State behind Penn State, whatever. But Tennessee, I don't think you're going to get a home game. And I talked to some folks in the press box today in Atlanta, and they tend to agree that a home game for Tennessee is probably not in the cards. Look, honestly, I have no idea where to put Clemson. I put him at 10. Sorry, Indiana. I don't know what Indiana's ceiling is, but I do know that Clemson beat a team that should be in the college football playoff. That matters to me. So put Clemson at number 10, Indiana at 11, and put SMU at 12. Is there a case to put SMU at 11? Yeah, there is. There is. And I know Kurt Signetti doesn't like to hear that, but maybe the debate should be Indiana versus Alabama rather than SMU versus Alabama. Now, it won't be, in my mind. They wouldn't do that, but there's a reasonable argument that could be made for that. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about injury concerns, because could we have a Jordan Travis scenario? It could happen. It's college football smothered and covered, and of course, we are powered by the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is brought to you by our good friends at Mint Mobile. I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on it. Turns out the hardest part was actually canceling my old service. It was easy with Mint Mobile. To get started, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. There you'll see a 3-month plan, only $15 a month, including that coveted unlimited plan. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with your existing contacts. Find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile and get those 3 months of premium wireless service for only $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege, mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on your first 3-month plan only. Speed slower than above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See mintmobile.com for more details. Okay, so let's talk about injuries. Now, I'll be honest, calling the Georgia-Texas game slop would be insulting to slop. It was bad. It was really, really bad. But at the end of the first half, we all know the story by now. Carson Beck got hit, a hit that was very similar to the one he took at the end of the regulation in the Georgia Tech game. And I know he came in for the final play. He can't move his arm. He can't move his arm. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but that's a serious injury. That's not something that can be fixed overnight. We'll see what the MRI says, but Georgia's not going to mention anything until after the rankings and the brackets are announced. Sure, they got a bye. I mean, we all know that, but you've seen the committee do some stupid things with injuries in the past. Better safe than sorry. So there's this idea. they're not going to get Jordan Travis. I just don't see that happening, partially because we saw Gunnar Stockton come in and they were just fine. In fact, I think Gunnar Stockton was a step up from what Beck was in the first half. So this idea that they might get punished because of Carson Beck's injury, I just don't see that. Plus, on top of that, the committee has theoretically watched all of Georgia's games this year. Carson Beck hasn't been great. In fact, he's been a liability in a lot of them. So knowing that Gunnar Stockton can come in and take care of business and, in fact, give the offense a boost is very important for the committee and important for Georgia. Now, I know you go back and watch how they called the game with Gunnar. It was not they were not giving him much of the playbook. They were not giving him much of the playbook at all. And that's the way you should go about it, because you got to get the win more than anything else. But I think it's fair to say that for the next couple of weeks, they will treat Carson Beck with kid gloves. And if he doesn't play, he doesn't play. It's a perfect opportunity to get Gunnar Stockton going. And I tell you what, living in the state of Georgia, Gunnar Stockton is a little bit of a high school legend. He has, he's got that Northeast Georgia swag, and he's been talked about in this state for 7 years. He's a redshirt sophomore. He's been talked about a lot in this state. So I think he can handle the responsibility. I think Georgia can still be a national champion with him at the helm. We saw Trevor Etienne get in the mix. Now, Trevor Etienne's been sort of an enigma all year long. Trevor Etienne, I think, found his groove in this game. I think when the thing with Georgia is that the drops continue to plague this team. They just keep happening. That's what's going to cause problems for Georgia. It's not going to be Gunnar Stockton. It's the receivers that can't catch the ball. So don't worry, Georgia fans. You're not going to get Jordan Travis. Obviously, you're going to make the playoff and get an automatic bid, but you're not going to get pushed behind Arizona State or Boise State or whatever. We already talked about Texas. Now, with the Longhorns, though, what do you do about your offensive line? Because Georgia lit them up again. I think it was 14 tackles for loss. Georgia lit them up again, but it's Georgia, right? But they were downright awful. We talked about Quinn earlier, but the offensive line was terrible. Awful. Banks was obviously not healthy enough to play. They play in 2 weeks. Will Kelvin Banks be back? I don't know. It looked bad last week. So if he's not playing in this game, clearly something's bothering him to a point where he needs more than just a little rehab, because a championship was on the line. That offensive line has to be better for the rushing attack, because it was Wisner. Jaden Blue was not even there, it seems like. So that's the problem with Texas. It's part of the reason why I have them below Notre Dame, is because I don't trust that offensive line at this point. Defense is fine. Offensive line, not so much. We'll take a break. When we come back, a hiring that has sent a shockwave, or should I say freeze, to Central Florida. That's coming up on College Football Smothered and Covered. And of course, we are powered by the Locked On Podcast Network. Show brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. You know what? You bet $5. Download the app, bet $5. If you win that bet, they will give you $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed. And what's beautiful about FanDuel is everything is right there for you. So if you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can look at live play-by-play stats and place a bet right there, all on the same page. It's so easy. Go to FanDuel.com. $5, you win it, you get $150 guaranteed at America's #1 sports book. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. Hidden in the midst of the ACC championship game madness was an announcement. Now, we heard reports earlier. Matt Marshall of Orlando Sentinel talked a little bit about Scott Frost. He's back. He's back in South Florida, Central Florida, I should say, as the new head coach, the new old head coach at UCF. I know there's this idea that they will come back to the good old days. He had one good season. It was a great season. It was not a national championship season, but it was a good season. The expectation is for UCF to do that every single year. In the Big 12, that's going to be hard in and of itself. But let's not kid ourselves in thinking that Scott Frost is just this magician. He's not. He's not. Now, he built a reputation off a great season, but that's the only one really to hang his hat on. Now, he runs a great offense. He can recruit the area. Obviously, UCF, and we've talked to Gus about this 1,000 times, UCF's in a good spot to recruit, get transfers, all that stuff. But is there any strategic advantage that Scott Frost brings that any other coach that has connections to the Florida area could bring? No. He's not going to bring UCF back to the promised land, especially in a Big 12 that we saw what Arizona State can be. We know what Iowa State can be. Colorado under Coach Prime is definitely on the way up. Even without Hunter and Shedeur Sanders next year, I think they'll be just fine. So I know it's easy to look at 2017, Scott Frost, UCF. Let's all give a thumbs up. No, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Let's wait to see what happens, because I don't think this is a surefire hire like a lot of other people do. Let's get to comments. Jay Harvey, will you and Tom be extending your show tomorrow morning to give live reactions to the final CFP reveal? No, we will not. Actually, Tom is being a big baby and not joining me tomorrow morning. I don't know what he's doing, actually, just being a big baby. But no, Chris Plank and a host of others. Bobby Carpenter's doing the show. There's a bunch of other folks doing it from 12 until 6. I don't know, whatever. But I'm still doing the morning show, 3 hours. I'm in, and then all my coverage will be on Outkick, covering everything that happens, because there will be a lot. We're not going to care about the other bowl games, but certainly there will be plenty of reaction. I'll be writing it. We'll be doing this show. So don't forget to share this, because we will be doing all kinds of stuff here on college football, smothered and covered. All in for Clemson. Let's go Clemson. It's a good comment. Clemson did good today. Obviously, Clemson did fine. So, yeah, let's go Clemson. But tomorrow, again, there is absolutely no way you can put SMU behind Alabama. No way. No chance. And again, here's my seeding of the college football playoff. Got Arizona State and Boise State jumping into the 3 and 4 spots, respectively. Think that'll be a big deal. And then, of course, SMU sliding in at number 12. If you want to make an argument that SMU should be number 11 and Indiana should be number 12, or move Clemson down to 11, put SMU at 12, and bump Indiana up, I'm all ears. There are valid arguments for a lot of those three. Even like the bottom 3 on my list right here. And if you're listening, you can go see it. Can make an argument for any of those. But that's what I would do. I think that's what they'll do. I think that'll be the actual bracket too. I think I'm going to be right on with this. If I'm not, you can come back and yell at me. Don't forget to sign up, be an insider. Below, you can see the link. I can text you. You can text me. It's a lot of fun. We can be friends. And I do a lot of texting to the point where my wife gets kind of annoyed with me. We'll be back Sunday. We'll do a post bracket? What do you call it? Post show? Post CFP reaction show? I don't know what you call it. Anyway, we'll be back then. Till then, have a good one.